Something is very wrong in Port Charles, and the most unsettling part is that this entire 2-week stretch arrives wrapped inside a celebration. On the surface, this is supposed to be a milestone moment, a victory lap for one of daytime television's most enduring institutions. But underneath that celebration, the story turns darker, stranger, and a whole lot more unstable. A battered Jason is coming home from a black site prison looking like a man who left part of himself behind. Anna is reunited with Valentin, but she may not be fully alone in her own mind. Brennan is racing against the clock, hunting for one thing that could change everything before Drew slips beyond control. And just when viewers think they understand who the heroes are, who the villains are, and who's telling the truth, the whole narrative starts to bend. Because this isn't just a spoiler cycle, it feels like a pressure cooker. I'm Anderson, and this is Soap Pulse. If you enjoy smart soap deep dives with a little edge, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share, because this Port Charles story gets messier the deeper you look. What makes these 2 weeks so compelling is that they don't play like a standard batch of soap teases. They play like a town-wide credibility crisis. Who's lying? Who's spiraling? Who's manipulating the story? And who's already too late to stop what's coming? That's the energy here. And fittingly, it all begins as General Hospital hits that jaw-dropping 16,000th episode, a number that reminds longtime viewers just how much history sits inside this show. This is a drama that began in the early 60s as a half-hour black-and-white soap before evolving with television itself, and there's something almost poetic about reaching a milestone this massive with a storyline built around memory, identity, public narrative, and the terrifying idea that people can come back from trauma looking familiar but acting nothing like themselves. That's the first layer of the mystery. The celebration is real, but so is the instability. And if you know this show, you know milestone episodes do not exist just to pat themselves on the back. They exist to pivot the future. The obvious headline is Jason. Steve Burton's return isn't just fan service here, it lands like a warning shot. According to preview material, when viewers first see Jason again, he still appears to be under lockdown at that WSB black site prison in Indonesia, even though the machinery of his release is already in motion. Joss negotiated that freedom through a deal, and that deal matters because it appears to have required a rewritten version of events, one that turns one man into a hero and another into the villain the public can live with. Jason gets out, but the cost of that release may echo through multiple storylines at once, and when he finally appears, he doesn't look triumphant. He looks wrecked, not just physically bruised, but emotionally flattened, like someone who has been forced to sit still with his own thoughts in a way Jason Morgan never comfortably does. That detail matters more than it may seem at first, because if Jason comes home changed, then every relationship waiting for him at home is suddenly standing on unstable ground. His family expects Jason. Port Charles may be getting someone else. That's why the next beats around him feel so loaded. He has explaining to do. He has plans for the future. And the show is signaling that those plans may include major life changes. That is not minor dialogue filler. That is the kind of phrasing soap writers use when they want the audience to start bracing for an emotional realignment. Danny may have questions. Rocco is still tied to the chain reaction that put Jason where he is. There's likely going to be anger, guilt, and fallout over who knew what and who said what to Brennan. But the larger emotional issue is even more interesting. What happens when the town's most famous enforcer comes back less certain, less automatic, maybe even less willing to be the man everyone needs him to be? And if you're Britt in that moment, maybe at the lowest point of your own arc, what do you do when the man you expected to reconnect with returns looking like he's lost the appetite for the life you imagined together? That's where the second layer hits. Britt is back, but her fresh start doesn't feel fresh at all. It feels hostile. She's heading back toward the hospital, back toward unfinished business, back toward people who haven't exactly rolled out a welcome mat. Lucas wants to know what she's going to do with this second chance. Carly reportedly is not thrilled to see her. Elizabeth is very much still in the emotional weather system around her. And then there's the arrival of a new face, Dr. Tristan Roberts, played by Dean Geyer, a top surgeon who's supposedly looking for a fresh start of his own. On paper, that sounds clean and professional. In soap language, it sounds like combustible material, a talented outsider with a past, a famous returnee trying to rebuild, rivalries in the hospital, and old history stalking everyone through the corridors. That's not a fresh start. That's a storm front. Britt making an accusation this early tells you everything you need to know about her headspace. She is not entering Port Charles quietly, she's entering as a live wire. And the moment Anna later starts grilling her about Cullum, Sidwell, Cassius, and the shadow of Faison's final project, Britt stops being just a returning character with attitude and starts looking like someone standing too close to a much bigger fire. Meanwhile, the hospital itself becomes a battlefield in another sense. One of the most deceptively important details in this entire 2-week stretch is the open board seat. On the surface, that sounds bureaucratic. But in soap terms, institutional power is never just paperwork. If Laura is indeed the one pushing Willow into that position, then Tracy's horrified reaction makes perfect sense. This isn't just about disliking someone, it's about influence. It's about who gets legitimized. It's about whether a woman at the center of town-wide scandal and manipulation can be elevated anyway because the right people decide she still serves a purpose. Brooke Lynn's confession to Chase that she framed Willow only intensifies that atmosphere. Because once a framing is admitted, the moral hierarchy gets murkier. Chase is almost certain to want that damage undone, but in Port Charles, undoing damage usually creates fresh damage somewhere else. So now ask yourself this: if Willow may be getting more institutional power at the same time the truth around her keeps getting messier, what exactly is the town rewarding? Competence? Sympathy? Utility, or just strategic convenience? That question hangs over nearly everything, especially the Anna and Valentin material. If there is one emotional reunion in these spoilers that should have felt safe, it's theirs. Instead, it feels haunted. They continue catching up. They talk about Charlotte. Valentin discusses the pardon he got from the WSB. He tells Anna how worried he was about her. She says she was worried about herself too. There's a hug. On paper, that is intimate, moving, and overdue. But the context poisons the sweetness. Anna is still dealing with Ghost Peter in her head, and that detail changes everything, because now every conversation she has is vulnerable to distortion. Every emotional beat becomes suspicious, and according to the spoilers, Valentin becomes suspicious. That is one of the most important phrases in the entire 2 weeks. Suspicious of what, exactly? Of Anna's behavior? Of what happened to her while she was gone? Of the version of events he is being fed by the WSB and everyone orbiting it? Or suspicious that the woman he loves is fighting a psychological war he cannot see from the outside? Longtime fans know Valentin is many things, but he is not emotionally dull. If Anna feels even slightly off, he will sense it, and that raises a genuinely creepy possibility. What if the first person to recognize Anna's instability isn't a doctor, not a colleague, not a supposed protector, but the man whose instincts tell him her words and her eyes are no longer telling the same story? That is the kind of soap tension that hits hard because it's emotional before it's procedural. Now bring Brennan into the frame and the entire atmosphere shifts again. Carly is caught off guard. Brennan tells her something is always a mistake. There's also this undercurrent that Carly still wants revenge on him, which means every conversation between them carries personal voltage and strategic danger. Brennan never feels like a man who is talking just to talk. He sounds like a man managing variables. Then we get the most alarming clue of all from official promo material. We are running out of the paralytic. We won't be able to control Drew much longer. Read that again for what it really means. Somewhere behind the polished language of strategy and next steps, there is a literal countdown happening. Brennan isn't just investigating, he's containing. He isn't just looking for evidence. He's trying to find something before a human being can no longer be controlled. That something appears to be the black box Cullum stole, and spoiler chatter suggests Brennan does eventually locate it. But the question that keeps the suspense alive is whether finding it and finding it in time are the same thing. They almost never are. If Drew recovers enough, remembers enough, or retaliates fast enough, then Brennan's hunt becomes less about prevention and more about cleanup. And if Carly realizes the extent of what Brennan has been managing behind the curtain, her anger could become something much more dangerous than wounded pride. On Tuesday, the tension widens instead of narrowing. Jason explains his choices, and that's significant because Jason usually acts first and explains later, if at all. When a man like Jason starts putting his motives into words, it usually means those motives are about to be challenged. Elizabeth stands her ground, which sounds simple until you remember she appears deeply uneasy this week. If she is indeed sharing suspicions with Dante about Brennan and Drew and the bizarre circumstances surrounding them, then Liz is doing what Port Charles often punishes people for doing, noticing patterns too early. Jordan's striking out may involve her attempt to get Portia to persuade Isaiah to show mercy toward Curtis, but whether that's the exact mechanism or not, the larger point is obvious. Curtis has created a conflict zone that is now swallowing everybody around it. Nobody can negotiate cleanly because too many emotional debts are attached. Then there's Kai learning something shocking and the likely implication that Willow may be more responsible for Drew's confinement than some characters realize. Again, notice the pattern. The more this story advances, the less cleanly anybody fits into one category: victim, accomplice, protector, manipulator, lover, informant. These labels keep overlapping. That's why Valentin's suspicion matters so much right here. He may be the first character to realize that the official explanation for what's happening around him is simply too neat. Wednesday might be the day the whole thing becomes an actual investigation. Anna is looking for answers, and thanks to Obrecht's sketching of the room beneath Windermere and her certainty that Anna was held on Spoon Island, Anna finally has something concrete to chase. This is where the show smartly turns trauma into geography. It's not just what happened to Anna, it's where. It's not just who hurt her, it's who hid her, moved her, lied about it, and benefited from her destabilization. Jocelyn, meanwhile, unpacks a secret, and if she is indeed the one who tells Obrecht the truth that Cassius died a hero, then that confession isn't just emotional housekeeping, it's narrative sabotage. Because Obrecht is already furious that Cassius is getting the villain edit while Cullum is being hailed as heroic. That means the public version of the story and the emotional truth of the story are splitting apart in real time. And when soap stories start asking who got the edit and who got erased, they're not just talking about plot, they're talking about power. Nina and Brennan planning their next steps only deepens that feeling. The spoilers suggest they may get closer while trying to help Willow, and if that happens, it won't just be about attraction. It will be about proximity under pressure, about shared secrecy, about two people standing near a crisis with information other people don't have. In soap worlds, intimacy grows fastest where silence is mandatory. At the same time, Curtis showing gratitude and Gio and Trina getting big news provide brief flashes of relief, but even those moments feel strategically placed, like calm sections in a piece of music before the next hit lands. Thursday is where resentment starts spilling over everywhere. Emma and Gio talking about their future sounds hopeful, but hope in Port Charles almost always gets interrupted. And sure enough, Isaiah interrupts Curtis and Portia. If Isaiah is escalating through a civil action or simply refusing to absorb more hostility quietly, then Curtis is about to learn that righteous anger can still have consequences. Obrecht raging isn't just comic fury either. She is objecting to history being rewritten. She is objecting to a dead man being publicly flattened into something he wasn't, while another man gets polished into something he may not deserve to be. Anna grilling Britt adds even more heat, because once Anna starts interrogating people, the story announces that suspicion has graduated into action. And then there's Cody, apparently assigned a thankless task that may involve James and the truth about his father. That's the kind of subplot soaps use to remind viewers that while spies, black boxes, and psychological collapse may dominate the headline, the emotional casualties spread outward into children, family identity, and grief that has been managed through lies. By Friday, the emotional geometry gets even more volatile. Carly draws a hard line with Sonny, and all signs point to Valentin being the trigger. That matters because Carly and Sonny set the emotional temperature of Port Charles whether they're together or not. If Carly is done letting Sonny dictate her choices, then this is bigger than romantic friction. It's a declaration of sovereignty. And if Sonny really does turn to Britt to help split Carly and Valentin up, that tells you Sonny views this relationship as more than a nuisance. He views it as a threat. Then Valentin reportedly makes his feelings clear, and if the implication is what it looks like, the message is huge. Anna may be his history, but Carly is the woman he wants now. That is not a casual development. That is a seismic emotional pivot, especially arriving at a moment when Anna is psychologically vulnerable and Carly is locked in a constant war of trust with Brennan and Sonny. Lulu warning Ethan may tie into Ava. Joss and Trina catching up may finally force Joss to admit she's WSB. Emma being bothered by that reveal is exactly the kind of detail this show uses to remind us that secrets don't just end relationships, they reclassify people. One minute Joss is a best friend, the next she's something more complicated, more dangerous, less readable. And Nina opening up to Brennan because she's worried about Willow and knows time is running out tells us the second week won't be about whether the crisis escalates, it will be about who gets buried by it first. Once the following week begins, the pressure stops feeling abstract. Curtis's trial is closing in. Portia is expected to go into labor while she's on the witness stand, which is one of those classic soap setups that sounds outrageous until you realize how efficiently it forces enemies into temporary cooperation. Isaiah and Curtis may have to set their animosity aside because reality is about to supersede ego. But temporary unity doesn't erase what came before, it just postpones the bill. Britt, meanwhile, is reportedly at rock bottom when Jason gets back to Port Charles, and that may be one of the most emotionally brutal turns in this whole stretch, because if Jason has changed and Britt is hoping for some recognizable thread to hold on to, she may instead encounter distance, disappointment, or worse, indifference. Fans who have invested in Britt's emotional volatility know that rock bottom never stays private in Port Charles. It spills. Carly and Valentin are apparently all in, but being all in is not the same as being safe. The haters are already lining up, with Sonny as the most obvious obstacle and Brennan perhaps the most interesting one. Because Brennan's issue may not just be jealousy or distrust, it may be that he knows too much about what's coming and he has no confidence that Valentin's presence helps him contain it. Nina and Brennan growing closer while trying to save Willow could become one of those unexpectedly intimate pairings born from crisis management, and the danger there is obvious. The more emotionally entangled Brennan gets, the more compromised his judgment could become. Drew's recovery begins with revenge on his mind, and that may be the most chilling element of the back half of this story. A recovering man who has been chemically controlled, strategically handled, and emotionally weaponized is not going to wake up grateful. He's going to wake up hunting for authorship over his own story. Anna, still battling Ghost Peter, remains a psychological wild card. That's important because even if she discovers the truth, can she trust herself to act on it clearly? Serena Baldwin's return adds another classic daytime ingredient: legacy. Bringing her back to help Lucy in the brewing battles over deception isn't just fan nostalgia. It signals that the business and family wars are about to overlap. Tracy facing off with Lucy over the Brooklyn stock mess reinforces that point. In this town, romance, corporate leverage, legacy children, and old resentments never stay in separate lanes. And Alexis and Diane looking to hire another lawyer is the kind of background development that sounds small now, but often becomes crucial once the legal and political fronts begin merging. So when you step back and look at the whole canvas, the real story of these 2 weeks isn't just that Valentin is suspicious or that Brennan is hunting. It's what those two actions reveal about the state of Port Charles. Suspicion means the surface narrative has cracked. Hunting means somebody powerful knows time is almost gone. That is why the material feels so much more gripping than a normal spoiler rollout. Brennan may be hunting a black box, but symbolically he is hunting control. Valentin may be suspicious of Anna, but emotionally he is suspicious of reality itself, of whether the woman in front of him is actually free, whether the story he's been handed makes sense, and whether the institutions claiming to protect people have done the exact opposite. Jason's return, meanwhile, hangs over everything like a human lie detector. Because when a man comes home from captivity changed, everybody around him has to reveal who they are in response. Do they comfort him, use him, fear him, hide things from him, or expect him to slip back into the role they need? That's the deeper reason this milestone week works so well. It isn't celebrating longevity by looking backward. It's celebrating longevity by proving the show still understands one timeless dramatic truth. The scariest moments don't come when strangers betray you. They come when the people, places, and stories you thought you knew begin to feel unfamiliar. And that is exactly what Port Charles feels like right now. Familiar faces are back, but nobody is stable. Institutions are functioning, but nobody trusts them. Love stories are advancing, but almost every one of them is shadowed by secrecy, rivalry, or a psychological fracture. By the time this 2-week run reaches its emotional turning point, the biggest question may not be whether Brennan finds what he needs or whether Valentin confirms what he fears. The biggest question may be whether Port Charles can survive this many rewritten truths colliding at once. Because once the public version of a story starts drifting too far from the private truth, somebody always pays. Maybe it's Drew, maybe it's Anna, maybe it's Carly, maybe it's Jason trying to return to a town that has already changed the meaning of his absence. Or maybe it's the audience, forced to realize that the real hook here was never one spoiler, one romance, or one return. It was the creeping sense that in Port Charles, the people still standing may no longer be the people anyone thinks they are. And if Valentin is finally asking the right questions while Brennan is still chasing the right object, then the race isn't just toward evidence, it's toward revelation. And on a show built on 16,000 episodes of secrets, betrayals, resurrections, and reinventions, revelation is never clean, it's personal, it's explosive, and this time it may be coming for everyone.